Hello viewers, I am Lakshmi Padmanabhan. Welcome to Gandhi Hacks in South Africa. Well, a word about Gandhi Hacks. This is actually a renaming of Gandhi Giri, a program on Gandhi which I have been doing on Mahatma Gandhi's life on YouTube. I had completed some 40 episodes of it, and I am into the second decade of Gandhi's life in South Africa. But I have been doing all this in Malayalam, my mother tongue, the language of Kerala. But then a thought occurred to me, rather a question I asked myself, should I not be doing this narration in English, as was suggested by some of my friends quite early in the program. Hence, Gandhi Hacks. I renamed it. Gandhi Giri meant, the style of Gandhi, his manner of dealing with problems in the non-violent manner. So Gandhi Hacks, in the new lingo, I changed it to Gandhi Hacks. After all, Gandhi was a global guy. He had to deal with the governments of Natal, the government of India. At that time it was the British who were ruling over India, and the imperial government of Britain. Plus later on he had to deal with the government of Transvaal as well. So that makes it an intercontinental drama. So the most appropriate language for it is English, so that the South Africans can follow it, the Britons can follow it, Americans, Australians, Africans, wherever English is a very important language, can follow the story. And of course, all the other Indians who are non-Malayalis can also follow my story. So here we are with Gandhi Hacks in South Africa. What is the significance of it? The significance of Gandhi and this place called South Africa is very, very great, because if you ask some South Africans, they would tell Indians, you gave us Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi and we gave you the Mahatma. So that sums up the role that South Africa has played in the life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Now that we are in this South African territory, let us try to see what South Africa was in the past, something of the origins of this place, which is called the Rainbow Nation, by Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu, a description that was later on repeated by Nelson Mandela. And historians celebrate this place as the cradle of humankind. So let us get on to the time machine and travel backwards to those times, the 19th century and even earlier than that, into the very origins of this nation. The first reference to the southern part of the Dark Continent we find in Bartholomew Dias. The Portuguese explorer, navigator. It was in 1488 the first reference was made. This was followed by the more familiar name for us, Vasco da Gama, in 1497. The place fascinated these Europeans. They fell in love with the place. It had all the blessings of very unusual features. Nature had showered all these beautiful things on this land, things like bushvells and grasslands, you call them savannas. Then you had the mountain ranges, a long coastline and beautiful beaches, plus and more than anything else, a very beautiful climate, a temperate climate, which was a great temptation for the Europeans. So much so that they wanted to settle down here. They wanted to make it their own country. Unlike India, for example, where none of these Europeans wanted to settle down because the climate was so hostile. But South Africa was so welcoming. because of the climate. The first Europeans to settle down in South Africa were the Dutch, people of Holland or the Netherlands, you call it. They settled down in 1652. They were followed by the British sometime later in 1795. Of course, there were the African natives before these came in. They also came from other parts of Africa. You had this Khoi tribe, then the San tribe. There was a mingling of these tribes. Then came the Bantus, another group of people who spoke a different set of languages. Of the Bantus, the Zulus began to dominate the population of South Africa. Now we come to the 1890s. In the 1890s, the time when Gandhi landed in South Africa, administratively there were 4 provinces: Cape Town, Natal, the Transvaal, and the Orange Free State. Now look at the names. The names are also very fascinating. Cape Town, Cape means landmass jutting into the sea, what you call a promontory. So that was Cape Town. It was named Cape Town, and the Cape was called the Cape of Good Hope. Originally it was the Cape of Storms. How it transformed itself into Good Hope? It was done by the Portuguese king, because this cape was the place which showed the way to India. The sea route to India was something of a holy grail for all these European navigators. They had been in search of this. Several of these seafarers had lost their lives in the process of trying to find the sea route. And at last they have hit upon the place which would lead them to India. Then take Natal, also is has a beautiful name. Vasco da Gama named it Terra Natalis, or the land of the birth. The birth meaning the birth of Christ. He happened to land there on a Christmas day. Then you come to Transvaal, has to do with the Vaal River in that area. And then you have Orange Free State. It came to be named Orange Free because of the House of Orange, the family of kings who were ruling over the Netherlands at that time. So this was the composition, the administrative setup. Of these, Cape Town and Natal were British colonies. Cape Town had self-government. Natal was directly under the British crown. The other 2 states, the Transvaal and the Orange Free State, were Boer territories. Boers were the descendants of the Dutch. Boer means farmer. So they had control over these 2 places. Most of them like to follow farming. See, then there were the African natives. I had already mentioned them. They were called Kafirs by the Europeans, a term that Mohandas Gandhi also used to refer to them in the beginning. Of course, he changed his attitude towards them much later in his life. After all, when he went there, he was a man in his early youth, so he just followed some of the patterns of thinking that were prevalent there at that time. So these natives, they were also farmers. They tended to their own farms. Quite early in their life there, the Europeans found out that the soil of South Africa was very good for sugarcane cultivation. So they wanted to have these plantations, but who would work on these plantations? They needed the workers, the laborers. The African natives would not like to work on these. As I said, they prefer to work in their own farms. So the Europeans, particularly the British, began to think of India as a source of workers. Remember, at that time India was ruled over by the British. British rule was tightening its grip on the Indian subcontinent. And so the Englishmen there in South Africa, the planters, the rich people, they appealed to the government of India. In fact, the government of Natal appealed to the government of India to get these immigrants from India. And so agents and sub-agents were appointed. They went to the cities, the towns and the villages of India and could get a good number of people to work in the plantations in South Africa. Most of them were from the southern part of India, Tamils and Telugus, and the conditions were actually good. They were given free passage to South Africa. They were given ration and lodging in the plantation. They were paid a certain sum which they could send to their places back home, and it was the contract was for a term of 5 years, and that was known as indenture. So you get this term, indentured laborers. So these Indians who went to South Africa were known as the indentured laborers. Now they could continue for the 5 years, and after the term ends, they could get the term extended, or they could go back to India, or they could settle down in South Africa as free citizens, do other types of work. So all these things were there, which was a kind of bonus for the Indians at that time. In the early stage, it was a win-win situation for both. For the Indian workers, they were paid, they were looked after, they were also given some medical help, etc. And for the European planters, the English planters, it was a great bonanza. Sugarcane cultivation improved vastly. In 10 years' time, 50 times more was the production and export of sugar. So it was very good in the beginning. As I said, it was a win-win situation. Things start changing only much later. Now, in the 1870s, the profile of the Indians who went to South Africa changed. Instead of these laborers, the poorer people from South India, you find the rich merchants from Gujarat moving to South Africa. They bought their passage. That is, the government of Natal did not pay their passage. On their own, they came to set up shop there, to do their business there. They were known as the passenger Indians because they were passengers. They were not indentured laborers. They were under no contract whatsoever. They came there because they found a great prospect there. And one more thing that attracted to the attraction of the place was the discovery of diamonds and gold. See, much earlier. It drew people from all over the world to South Africa. So let me come back to the second wave of immigration from India, the merchants coming into. They were mostly from Gujarat, Porbandar, and majority were Muslims. There were also some Hindus. So they came there and set up shop there, and along with them came the Hindu clerks and the Parsi clerks. See, these merchants, they needed people to manage their offices, their accounts, etc. So clerks came from these other communities. There was a lot of interaction between the merchants and these clerks, but there was very little interaction between these people on the one side and the indentured laborers on the other. Whatever contact was there was merely matter of fact. There was no social contact as such. These Indian laborers were called coolies by the English, by the Europeans. And since the majority of Indians who were there were laborers, all Indians came to be called coolies. And even Mohandas Gandhi was called a coolie barrister by them. And we are all surprised to hear that even now the word coolie survives in some parts of Africa, as testified by our own Fahin, our own Owen Sang, Marco Polo, Santosh George Kulangara. He says that he heard the word coolie somewhere in Mozambique. Now, there was another word which became very popular among the Europeans, and that word was Sami. Indians were also called Samis because most of the Tamil workers had names like Ramaswamy and Krishnaswamy, so which they pronounced as Sami, and the irony of it was lost on the Europeans. The word Swami actually means master in our Indian languages, but they used it to refer to the coolies. So that is the funny part of it. So this is the background against which we have to follow the story of Gandhi's landing in Durban. Least did he know that he was stepping into history when he went there. Now, why did he go there is a question. What took him there? What was the attractions of South Africa? That we'll see in the next episode. Before I conclude and say bye, I would like to mention with gratitude some of the books that I've referred to and their authors. Here they are. First, the first biography of Gandhi, written by Joseph Doak, priest at the Baptist Church in Johannesburg. The book is titled M.K. Gandhi, an Indian Patriot in South Africa. It was published in 1909. As early as that, Doak was someone who had met Gandhi, lived with him. The second book is by Robert Payne, Life and Death of Mahatma Gandhi. That also is an early book comparatively, sometime in the 1960s I think it was published. Then Bapu's own autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, and his Satyagraha in South Africa. Then some of the later books, Gandhi, Naked Ambition by Judd Adams, a sort of irreverent take on Gandhi. At the same time, the respect is there, it is hidden, the admiration is there, of course masked by a kind of irreverent tone. And then of course our own Ramachandra Guha, who can ignore this great historian, Gandhi Before India by Ramachandra Guha. Now I request my viewers to follow the link that is given at the end of this page, which would take you back to Gandhigiri. You can follow the story in Malayalam because I had done some 20 episodes on South Africa itself. So if there is any problem with the English language, with your understanding of it, you can go back to it. I am repeating it. Of course, there may be some differences in the way I am presenting this part of the story. So please do subscribe, like and share. So thank you all very much. See you in the next episode.